I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, sir. Please start.
Yeah. Good evening to all the participants and the eminent speakers to this webinar on boosting immunity for a healthy life. Myself, Karthik Shanmugam, GM Marketing with Apex Laboratory, will initially take you through the journey of Apex and then one of our repurposed drug, Clevira. So I will take a few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, explaining you about both this. Apex Laboratory, the vision of our company is to strive to achieve international product quality and set standards for the industry by subjecting themselves for critical evaluation by industry experts. Continue to remain as pioneers for providing quality medicine to healthcare industry. Apex Laboratory is a private limited which has more than 4-decade-old pharmaceutical manufacturing and export-based company in Chennai, India. We pioneered zinc in pharmaceutical formulation in India, as we have the flagship brand, which is Zincovit, and P range of paracetamol, and a whole range of branded formulation, including dermatology, pediatrics, orthopedics, herbal, having global presence in over 30 countries. We have our research, innovation, and quality, which are the guiding principle for the company. We manufacture this in 4 of our plants. One of the most important plant is our plant 2, which is a UK MHRA approved facility for oral solids, products of which we export to countries like UK, Canada, etc. We also have plant 1, plant 3, and plant 4 for various other formulations. The company manufacturing operations are fully supported by stringent quality control systems with undoubted focus on quality and innovation. The company has sustained its growth and product acceptability and wide patronage from the medical fraternity. As per AWOC, Apex ranks amongst the top 30 companies in IPM for the month of May 2021. I thank all of you for making this happen. And our flagship brand, Zincovit, is ranked number 2 in pharma market as per MAT May 2021. We have also significantly contributed to the fight against COVID treatment with our new product launches in the last 1-2 years, which includes Clevira and antiviral. In few slides, I will take you through Clevira and how we have got the approval for the treatment. Clevira comes in tablet as well as syrup of 200 and 100 ml, which helps to clear viral infection. In fact, Clevira is the brainchild of Apex R&D Center, which has proven scientific evidence, was launched in Indian market in 2017 for dengue, which has been repurposed for COVID treatment. And recently it has been also proved to be safe in animal as well as human trials, which we have done in phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. And recently we have got the approval as a supportive treatment for mild to moderate COVID. The 10 powerful herbal extracts which contains in Clevira has antiviral and other property as well. The mechanism of action of Clevira, it inhibits the viral replication and viral load. It also builds immunity and antioxidant defense, and it also controls inflammation apart from antioxidant property that it has. We have done extensive studies on Clevira. The major are the 6 trials which we have conducted to get this approval from the government of India. We have done in vitro cytotoxicity study and antiviral assay in 2018, acute toxicity study, repeated dose toxicity study, which has proven that Clevira can be taken up to 2000 milligrams as well. We have also done phase 2 clinical trials in June 2019 for antiviral property, and also phase 3 clinical trial in June 2020, which got us the approval for COVID. We've also done the molecular docking study to establish the efficacy of the constituents. So as per this phase 3 clinical trial that we have done in Government Medical College, Omundra, hospital. The outcome of the trial revealed that the clinical signs and symptoms, it relieves the clinical Clevira relieves the clinical signs and symptoms of COVID-19 patients within 4 days. I would also stress upon that it has 86% recovery rate on the fifth day of treatment against the RT-PCR negative test, reduces viral load on the fifth day of treatment, CT value, and 100% recovery rate on the 10th day of treatment at RT-PCR negative. It also stimulates immunomodulation and increased platelet counts, possesses antipyretic, analgesic, and anti-inflammatory property. Also, it's an ideal prophylaxis treatment for primary contact of COVID-19 patients. The graph shows you the significant change and the recovery rates. As per this study, we got this approval from Ayush Ministry of Government of India, Ministry of Ayush. Clevira has now been approved by Government of India, Ministry of Ayush as a supportive treatment for mild to moderate COVID cases. After various stages of scrutiny and presentation before many government forums, Clevira has made it to the merit among other contenders. Not taking much time, I will just come to the last slide of Clevira. Clevira has been indicated for as an antiviral, as well as analgesic, antipyretic, as well as reversal of thrombocytopenia. A convenient option in fight against mild to moderate COVID cases. The dosage for adults, when it comes to tablets, is 1 tablet BID for 5 days in prophylaxis and 1 tablet BID for 14 days when it is for treatment. And when it comes to syrup, prophylaxis and treatment, 10 ml BID for 5 days, and for treatment it is for 14 days. For children between the age group of 5 to 12, the prophylaxis and treatment is 5 ml BID for 5 days and 14 days. And for those children in between 2 to 5 years, prophylaxis is 2.5 ml for 5 days and 14 days as a treatment option. So we have we repurposed this and got the approval 2 months back, and we have a very good response across the country with the favorable response rate and cure rates from the doctors. And with this, I thank you for your patience listening to the company as well as the product. I would take you through the further proceedings by handing over to our moderator, Dr. Himanshu Taide. He is MD along with MBA. He's a consultant, medical marketing, Apex Laboratory Private Limited. To just a brief about Dr. Himanshu, he has a work experience of 18 plus year to support the pharmaceutical industry, doctors, medical students in scientific projects and communication, clinical research, new product development, publication, and regulatory support. He has also delivered 112 lectures in various CMEs, conferences all across India, and 13 self-authored publication and written approximately 63 articles. Thank you very much to you, Dr. Himanshu. I would request you to take over and proceed further with the presentation. Dr. Himanshu? Dr. Himanshu? Ritu, are you able to hear me? Dr. Himanshu? Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, can you connect with the
And
Dr.
Dr. Himanshu is connecting, sir. Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. You can put the slides. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Dr.
Hello.
Himanshu, you can continue. We are able to hear you.
Yeah.
Dr. Himanshu?
I'm sorry. Slides are not visible at my end. I'm just opening it from my laptop.
Okay.
I'm extremely sorry for it. Karthikji, I suggest you please continue introducing Dr. Agamora.
Oh, sure. Definitely. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Agambora. Although doctor does not require any introduction, however, I will do that. Dr. Agambora is a chest physician, Vora Clinic, Mumbai, and is also the General Secretary, Academy of Advanced Medical Education. Dr. Agambora is a chest physician and Medical Director of Advanced Multi-Specialty Hospital, Villepalre, and he is also in charge of Vora Clinic at Borivali West, Mumbai. He's an honorary consultant chest physician at Karuna Hospital, Manav Kalyan Kendra, and Suhak Hospital. He's an ex-assistant honorary chest physician and in charge of Department of Chest and TB and Dr. R.N. Cooper, Municipal General Hospital, and ex-associate assistant professor, Department of Chest and TB, KJ Somaya Medical College, Mumbai. And doctor is also assistant editor of Journal of Association of Physicians of India, JAPI, and editorial board member of Chest Indian edition. So over to you, Dr. Dr. Agambora. Ritu, can you show the slides of Dr. Agambora?
You want me to share my screen or would you be playing? I will share my screen.
Yeah, your own screen, sir.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Visible?
Slides are visible, sir. Please speak it full screen.
Is this fine? Good evening, everybody.
Sir, slides are not in full screen.
And the topic that is given to me today is role of immunomodulation. They are in full screen on my screen. Okay, I suggest you move it from your end. Is it now? Is it now full screen?
Sir, please share your screen again. Please share your screen again, sir.
Now? Is it seen? Hello?
Hello, slides are visible, sir. You can start.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And today I'm going to be talking about the role of immunomodulators in the respiratory disease. And the outset, I must express my sincere thanks to my teacher, Professor Director Dr. K.C. Mohanty, my close friend, Dr. Parthiv Mehta, my friend for over 2 decades. And I'm so happy that we are sharing platform today after a long time and I could get chance to connect with him. Team IJCP for choosing this topic and giving me this opportunity. Team Apex, of course, I met my friend Karthik after a long time. I think Karthik, as we were remembering, I met him after 3 years. I know him for almost 5, 6 years now. And I'm so happy that currently he's holding the post of GM with Team Apex. Dr. Himanshu Taide, there is a definite role of a good moderator, and I'm sure you're going to play that role today. All my patients who gave me opportunity to learn my respiratory medicine, and of course, all of you who chose to be here on Sunday evening. And it's only your presence that encourages us to do web programs like this. Me and Parthiv were talking about this program, and then I was looking at the concept. Karthik, I was just wondering, I was just Googling about the life, and I realized, we have this time frame, we call this Yug. We have Kal Yug, we had Dwapar Yug, we had Treta Yug, and then before that we had Sat Yug. And every Yug has multiples of one Charan. Kal Yug would be about 432,000 solar years. 2 Charans of Dwapar Yug will be somewhere around 864,000 solar years, so on and so on. Satyug will be 4 Charans. That's the average duration of one Satyug, and that is solar year. And I was looking at what is the average life span during this Satyug. And you would be happy to know that Satyug, the average human lifespan was 1 lakh years. That means people used to live for 1 lakh year. Almost it was, wish death. Ichha mrityu bolte na. Treta Yug had average human life of somewhere around 10 to 15,000 years. Then came Dwapar, average lifespan of about 1,000 years. And then came Kali Yuga, where average lifespan is about 100 years. And Parthiv is going to give us the trick to live beyond 100 years. But unluckily, as the Kali Yuga advances, the life expectancy again is going to fall, and it is going to fall gradually to the end that in the end of Kali Yuga, there will be hardly any life expectancy. And again, when I Googled further, I realized that Ram, who ruled in Treta Yuga, you can see Treta Yuga was 10 to 15 years, and the average life expectancy was 10,000 years. And it is said that Ram's age, generally it is a Ram is avatar, is a Lord Vishnu avatar, and they don't die. But whatever literature mentions, it says Ram lived for somewhere around 11,000 years before he committed suicide. Everybody knows that he went into Saryu River and ended his life. So that, it's not a death, but then he decided to end his life at somewhere around 11,000 years. That's the story of previous Yuga. Look at what happened in Dwapar. Krishna, Lord Krishna was born somewhere around 863, 874th year of Dwapar Yuga. And he believed to live for almost 128 years, 8 months, and 7 days. That means he lived for, though the life expectancy was more, but there also he allowed himself to bleed. We know that there was a arrow which hit him on the great toe, and he allowed him to bleed for 3 days. Easily could have avoided that death, but then he also wanted to end his life, and he ended his life somewhere around 125 years. And then came the Kali Yuga. And you know that in Brahma Puran, it is mentioned that there'll be 10,000 golden years of Kali Yuga, after which there'll be downfall of humankind. It said that Kali Yuga would end by, which means that golden age of Kali Yuga would end by 6898. We are in 2021. By February 6898, the first 10,000 golden years of Kali Yuga would end, and then would start the downfall of Kali Yuga. So 5,000 years have already passed. And you know that Bhagavad Puran says that at the end of Kali Yuga, the average size of human being would be only 1 feet, and average age would be 12 years. Parthiv is going to give us trick to live beyond 100 years, but by the end of this Yuga, there would be only 12 years of life expectancy. You can imagine from 1 lakh year in Satyug, we are going to 12 years in Kali Yuga. Look at the decline in height. Height and age started after Kali Yuga when the average height was 32 feet. In Satyuga, the average height was 32 feet. We know that dinosaurs' height was huge. They were all huge size. We had all huge size animals. And it is very easy to understand that, yes, or it is very easy to accept that, yes, there could be height of 32 years with life of 1 lakh year and almost wishful death. And at the end of this Kalyug, there'll be average height of 1 feet. From 32 feet, we are going to come down to 1 feet. And from 1 lakh year, we are going to come down to 12 years. Yes, something wrong is happening. We have done something very bad to our life so that our life expectancy is going down. And what has gone wrong? It's all about immune system. It's all about your resistance power. It's all about your fighting capacity. An immune system is a network of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to defend bodies against attacks by all foreign invaders, which could be germs, the tiny infections, bacteria, virus, parasites, fungi, whatever. And whenever the immune system hits the wrong target or it gets crippled, it unleashes a torrent of disease, including allergy, arthritis, or what we now know as cytokine storms and death. So immunity is body's ability to prevent invasion of various microorganisms, and you have two major immunities. One is innate immunity, and second is adaptive immunity. Innate immunity occurs naturally because of physiology or genetic factors, and adaptive could be again natural and could be artificial. It could be derived from passive transfer from your, from mother, or it could be active infection related. Artificial could be passively given through antibody transfers, or it may be active through immunization that you offer. So you have innate and adaptive. Innate is natural and non-specific. Adaptive is acquired and it is very specific. And both will have two components. Both immunity will have a cellular and a humoral component. So innate immunity is general protection. That is you're born with, and it is a barrier immune system. Includes skin, your nasal mucosa, all the orifices which are covered, and this defense mechanism of saliva and gastric acid, and the general inflammation that and general immune, that is inflammation. It is generally non-specific. It is not a specific virus or a bacterial targeted. It is a general non-specific immunity. It does not know what exactly which antigen is invading body, but it reacts quickly to defend to whichever allergen, whichever insult that happens to body, and it is very quick in action, starts within minutes. Whereas adaptive is developed from the immunological memory. So whenever you have such infections happening earlier, you have a system where this kind of infection is identified, the passage is stored in the system, and whenever you get re-exposure with that, you develop a plethora of antibodies, and the system comes in action. It takes certain time. It takes days to even weeks to become established. And both this immunity has a cellular and a humoral component. To look at innate immunity, the cellular immunity involves a monocyte and macrophage system, and a humoral immunity involves activation of a complement system, that is at innate immunity level. And when it comes to acquired immunity, the cellular component would be T lymphocytes, and a humoral component will be B lymphocyte. So you have this innate immunity, you have adaptive immunity. Innate is a first line defect, non-specific, and it can be said as it's a gatekeeper. And adaptive is antigen specific. It is a memory cell, and you have T cells and B cells taking part into it. Broadly, innate immediate, adaptive takes time, non-specific innate, whereas adaptive is very specific and has a memory. So it's your body is a balance. So your good health and disease state is there is a dynamic equilibrium which is going on. On one hand, you have your mucous membranes, your skin as a passive mechanical barrier. You have a non-specific immunity with your neutrophils, macrophages, NK cells, and then you have an antigen antibody specific defense with your humoral and cellular immune response on one hand. And on the other hand, you have virulence, the load, pathogenicity, resistance, mutations happening on allergen, virus, bacteria, and fungi, and that would decide, depending on which pallu is bhari, decide the outcome about your good health and disease state. Look at the situation. Every infection does not proceed to clinical illness. You have seen that in today's time, in one family, there are some patients who remain completely asymptomatic with COVID positive state. Some patients may develop fever, cough, there may be slight drop in saturation, and in the same family, some member would have significant hypoxia, may require hospitalization, and somebody may end up getting on ventilator, and some patients you may not be able to save. And that is what is the concept of this immunity. So every infection does not proceed to clinical disease. Every MANTU positive case does not develop disease. Long-term non-progressives, we know that HIV positive patient could remain HIV positive for years together and does not turn AIDS. Mohanty sir, my teacher used to say that, yes, definitely immunocompromised state is on rise. We are seeing more of disseminated TB. We are seeing more of exacerbation of COPD. We are seeing more and more drug-resistant TB. We are seeing more and more extrapulmonary tuberculosis. We are seeing more and more COVID and newer diseases like this. And what are the factors that are responsible for this lower immunity? Prolonged use of steroid, use of immunosuppressant drugs, HIV, diabetes, and most important is your lifestyle changes. The food containing chemical fertilizers, insecticide, pesticide, preservatives, and of course, high stress. The list is longer. You have nutrition playing major role in affecting your immunity, prior health, other illness, injury happening to you, the medication that you're taking, the medical illnesses you may have, that is there may be removal of spleen, and of course, stress plays major role. Every aspect of immunity in host defense is dependent on proper supply and balance of this nutrient. And needless to say that severe protein allergy malnutrition can cause significant alteration in immune system. And you can see that on one hand, you have immunity, surface immunity, cell-mediated immunity, antioxidant activity, and cytokine release. And on the other hand, you have a variety of nutrients which are involved in the function of this immune system. Prior illness, your AIDS, your temporary immune deficiency, your post-operative state, your smoking, your blood transfusions, etc., could lead to that. A lot of medication that one may be taking would make him prone to developing other disease. Or a certain organectomy, like you have a removal of spleen, or you may have one lung, you may be a kidney transplant recipient, and that puts you at a higher risk of developing poor immunity. Aging, stress also are known factors. My sir used to ask me, Agam, can we prevent infection? And I would say, yes, we can minimize, but we can't prevent. The prevention is very unlikely, it can be minimized. To add to it, every now and then you come across newer pathogens. Like we were introduced to bird flu at times, and now you have SARS-CoV, absolutely new disease. We knew nothing about it year and a half earlier. And every year you identify newer and newer diseases. Of course, chemotherapeutic approach would be the best one. You have to identify the bug. Luckily, this time we took hardly any time. In less than 2 months' time, we knew the entire genomic structure of this virus. Study the life cycle. We have to understand how it behaves. It took time for us to realize that it enters through ACE2 receptors. And then you have to develop agents and, these all those antibiotics, antiviral drugs, or various other drugs which would inhibit the life cycle. And of course, this approach is going to be time consuming. This approach will have its own limitations. So what are the you would need some time to understand. As you know that we almost had 1 year to understand what kind of drugs work and what do not, what kind of antivirals would take, what dosages, what duration, what phases, etc. That takes time. There may be development of drug resistance. There may be inability to reach, or it may be inaccessible for certain drugs. There may be dormant pathogens. We know that MDR, tuberculosis bugs could remain in the lesion for months together, decades together. They may be unsuitable for long-term use, the toxicities, and may paradoxically suppress host immune response. With that, what are immunomodulators? Immunomodulators are synthetic or natural substances which will help regulate and normalize your immune system. They correct immune system which are out of balance and tend to stimulate your defense system in such a way that cytokines or mediators help to balance your immunity. And it is a balanced state of multicellular organisms, that is for you, for any living bug, having adequate biological defense to fight infection, disease, or any other unwanted biological invasion, while having adequate tolerance to avoid allergy and autoimmune disease. So you have two things. When you suppress immunity further, you get infection, and in relevant, probably you may get more chances of developing autoimmune diseases and allergy. So to my mind, immunomodulator is a very big term, and any substance which has a potential to alter your immunity. And for explaining, I tell you, even a cigarette that you smoke would have immunomodulatory effect. It may suppress your immunity. A multivitamin you take, an antibody you take, or anything that even breathing alters your immunity. With breath to breath, there is changes in your immunity happening. And you have an immunosuppressant drugs and you have an immunostimulant drug. So this is how I look at immunomodulators. You have an immunostimulant, you have an immunosuppressant, and you have an immune adjuvant therapy. And this is how immunomodulators work. You have a stimulant. Look at this. You may have a specific stimulant, non-specific stimulant. It activates your immune system and enhances the defense, like for treatment of infections, your antibiotics or cancers, drug, etc. And immunosuppressants again could be a specific, a non-specific, would suppress immune system in such a way that it does not lead to, say, for example, organ rejection. So you have a kidney transplant patient and you would want to suppress that immunity. You would want to use immunomodulator, which would be immunosuppressant. But when he gets infection, you want to activate immune system in such a way that there is, say, antibiotic and which would kill the infection. So that is how an immunomodulator is used. You have a variety of immunomodulators. Let me give you the overview with transcription factor, that is NFKB, free radicals and lipid perioxidation, apoptosis pathway, immunomodulators working on complement pathway, protein synthesis, antigen presentations, and then you have T cells and B cells like serum immunoglobulins, or you have interferons, cytokines, and interleukins. And look at the list of immunosuppressants. We have used a lot of these immunosuppressants in our daily practice, and the commonest immunosuppressant is steroid. We also have cyclosporin, tacrolimus, we have IL-1 inhibitor like enkindran, etc. And there are a lot of therapeutic uses of these immunosuppressants. We have used glucocorticoids for almost every condition, be it a simple condition like allergic disorders on skin, to maybe a disease like autoimmune disease, to disease like asthma and COPD, to disease like rejection cases, transplant rejection cases. Again, the cyclophosphamide, we have drugs like tacrolimus, sirolimus, azathioprine, mycophenolate, cyclophosphamide are various immunosuppressant drugs. Look at immunostimulant drugs. We have all vaccines, we have all monoclonal antibodies are immunosuppressant. We know about COVID, there is a cocktail therapy which has come, that is in the category of immunostimulant, immunomodulators. There are various therapeutic usages. You have immunostimulant like BCG we have used for not only for tuberculosis prevention in children, but also for bladder carcinomas. It is again used for T1 papillary tumors of transurethral cases. There is levamisole use, interferon alpha. There is pegylated interferon alpha available even for COVID use, and if used early, has excellent results. There are a variety of side effects with all these molecules, immunomodulator like steroids and cyclophosphamide, tacrolimus, sirolimus may have a lot of side effects. And whenever I think of glucocorticoid side effects, it reminds me of Satoskar figure, a young boy with cataract there, with a paunch belly and a buffalo hump and a pepper money skin. All those side effects you see with variety of this immunomodulators that we use. So there's a monoclonal antibodies, BCG, levamisole, etc. has got plenty of side effects. Look at adult infection and immunity. There is a huge spectrum of adult infection. You have acute respiratory tract infection, urinary tract infection, you have a vector-based infection, you have malaria, dengue, etc. And you have another group that is sexually transmitted diseases. And this infection has a huge impact on morbidity and mortality. Look at the years lived life. 20 million years of life lost due to RTI and diarrheal infections alone. 2 million years lived with disability due to respiratory tract infections and diarrheal infection. That's the impact of this infection to our life. And the major cause of death is diarrheal disease, tuberculosis, and respiratory tract infection. And now to add to it, we have even COVID. Parthiv, I was making a calculation. And if I take it as last April, when I started seeing COVID, in Mumbai, and if I calculate the total death which is happening in the world, in the country, with almost 3.5 lakhs death in about a year's time, it means there is one death every 2 minutes. By the time we finish our discussion, there'll be almost 30 deaths in our country due to COVID. So COVID is also going to be a major cause of death in this year's figures. And then there is a definite link between nutrition and your immunity. Malnutrition in all form, be it undernutrition or overnutrition, has impact. In COVID, we know that overnutrition, is obesity, is associated with poor outcome, and it has a complex reciprocal synergistic effect. You have infection which is leading to deterioration of nutritional status, and nutrition which increases your susceptibility to infection, and this cascade continues unless you actively intervene, control infection, and improve malnutrition. So malnutrition would reduce body's resistance by antibody formation, production of non-specific protective substance, the phagocytic activity, non-specific resistance, inflammatory response, poor wound healing and collagen formation. All this is the effect of malnutrition. And again, overnutrition. Also, overnutrition leads to altered immune response and in altered inflammatory response. There are various micronutrients, that is vitamin B complex, vitamin C. There are fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, K, and they are required in minute quantities to perform very complex immune system functions. They have their effects on skin, mucosa, cell growth, DNA formation. They have their effects on blood clotting. They have their effects on calcium metabolism, and they participate into all immune functions. You have minerals. You have trace elements having their role in supporting immune system. Vitamin C and zinc, we know that vitamin C and zinc has got tremendous role in COVID management. But trust me, they are found useful in variety of situations earlier. And I just present few old studies, and it talks about effect of vitamin C on common cold. You have 120 120 participants on study received 50 milligrams of vitamin C, and 124 received 500 milligrams of vitamin C. And you could see that higher the dose, there was better outcome when it came to a simple disease management like cold. This is about zinc. This was the similar study with zinc, and this also talks about placebo and the zinc lozenges, and you could see that there was faster recovery in terms of common cold when it comes to zinc supplementation. And not only zinc supplementation in disease like cold or disease like this, when it comes to disease management like COVID, we know that zinc acts as ionophore. Zinc leads to pore formation, where due to this porous opening on the cell wall, the intracellular concentration of drug increases. So when you use zinc with ivermectin, when you use zinc with hydroxychloroquine, or when you use zinc with say any other drug for that matter, it acts as an ionophore and allows the higher concentration of drug inside the cell. So it is synergistic action with whatever you use. Vitamin C is the strongest, one of the best antioxidant that we know, and COVID is a lung disease, and hence there is tremendous role of this antioxidant. I would, in the end, talk about various immunomodulators that I have used in my practice. I have used levamisole. Levamisole I have used for drug-resistant tuberculosis, 150 milligrams. I would use 3 times a week. I'm talking about 20 years earlier, when we did not have correct definition of drug-resistant tuberculosis, and we did not know much about managing drug-resistant tuberculosis. At that time, immunomodulators like this I've used. IVIG therapy. We have used IVIG therapy, and I've contributed a chapter in the API textbook, API update on the immunoglobulins IVIG is used, and we have used it in all recurrent respiratory tracts. You have a ILD patients, a burnt out COPD patients, a frequent, very elderly patient with immunocompromised status, a burnt out HIV cases who spend more time in hospital. You can use them, you can give them IVIG. IVIG is a passive transfer of antibodies. Various herbomineral drugs with trace elements and supplements, various vaccines we have used, Mycobacterium vacci, the Immuvac or Sepsivac, something that we've used, bacterial lysates I've used, Pidotimmune I've used, monoclonal antibodies, various biologics that I've used in practice. And these are the situations where I've used it. I've used it in chronic persistent asthmas. I've used it in allergic rhinitis, recurrent respiratory tract infections, burnt out interstitial lung disease, burnt out drug-resistant tuberculosis, very bad bronchiectasis, advanced COPDs, and of course in COVID cases. When it comes to COVID, last 2-3 slides on COVID, to my mind, COVID is not much of viral disease. To my mind, COVID is much of allergy disease, or COVID is much of hyperimmune disease. COVID virus has a specific capacity to play with your immune system, and it plays with your immune system in such a way that it leads into hyperimmune phase, or something called as cytokine phase. You know that more than 80% of COVID cases will have low circulating T cell counts. Look at the decreased number of total T cells, CD4 and CD8 cells in subset of COVID-19. You have a healthy patient, non-ICU patient, and patient in ICU. You see that total T cells, CD4 cells, and CD8 cells, you see in all categories, whether they're ICU or non-ICU, there is significant depletion of total T cells, CD4 cells, and CD8 cells. Look at across the severity. You have mild, moderate case, severe case, critical case, and perished case. You have total T cells, CD4 cells, and CD8 cells. All are significantly reduced. And here, if you have anything which would boost the effect of this T cell or improve the functionality of T cell, would bring about improvement in COVID cases. I would end by saying that immunomodulation in COVID-2 infection has a paramount importance. We have seen that variety of immunomodulators work. A lot of studies talk against favipiravir, a lot of studies talk against remdesivir. That means there is a growing feeling that antivirals are weak and may not play much role in disease management, but what plays majority of role is your corticosteroids, and hence immunomodulators will have a role to play. And look at the gamut of immunomodulators that we have used. We have used RAS inhibitors, we've used steroids, we've used macrolide for their immunomodulatory properties, we've used IVIG, colchicine, GM-CSF, we've used interferon, statins, tumor necrosis factor alpha, IL-1 inhibitors, IL-6 inhibitors, and also JAK inhibitors. We have hardly one or two antiviral drugs, but look at the group of drugs, and every group will have 2 or 3 different molecules in them, and we have at least 8 or 9 different group of drugs available to modulate immunity, and immunomodulators have a role to play. And I would say that yes, there is a need for immunostimulator in current times, especially in people who are living with comorbidities. I would end my presentation by my teacher's quote. Professor Director Dr. K.C. Mohanty taught me once that Agam, with your political, with your financial, and with your bureaucratic powers, you may have access to healthy food. You may have access to best place to live. You may have access to very good quality water. But trust me, the air that you breathe is same as a common man on the street breathes. And hence, nobody is immune to airborne disease. Whatever be your status, you all will get airborne diseases. And if you want to save yourself, you have to improve your immunity. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful presentation. I'm audible. Hello. I'm audible to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, sir. You took us through the yugas, various yugas from Kali Yuga, and also you spoke about life and life expectancy coming down, sir, and how immunity plays an important role in controlling the human body, and the difference between also about innate and adaptive immunity. So you also spoke about how immune compromised patient takes longer time to recover as well, sir. Well, you said about prevention which is not possible. However, it is possible to actually reduce the impact or minimize the effect of the infection as well. With proper nutrition would definitely help us, sir. And well, very nicely put forward about the immunomodulators and the COVID. Thank you for explaining in such a easy manner the importance of immunomodulators, vitamins, and zinc in such a simplified manner, sir. We will take up a lot of, I think, a lot of people would be having questions. We will take up the questions after Dr. Parthiv Mehta's presentation, sir. Thank you once again, sir. So I will now call upon Dr. Parthiv Mehta to speak about on living beyond 100 years, a myth or a reality. So before that, I would like to introduce Dr. Parthiv Mehta, who is MD, FCCP, Senior Consultant Intensivist, UN Mehta Institute of Cardiology, Mehta Hospital and Cardiopulmonary Care Center, United Hospital, Ahmedabad. Dr. Parthiv Mehta is a practicing pulmonologist, intensive care specialist in Ahmedabad, Gujarat since 1995 in Mehta Hospital. Dr. Mehta is affiliated with reputed public sector government healthcare establishment. He is honorary pulmonologist with HE Governor of Gujarat. Yeah, the next slide. Ritu, can you please go to the next slide? Yeah. He is also the medical director of Mission Life India and Central United Hospital. Cutting short, a lot of credentials of doctor. He is also he's having an experience of close to 30 years in clinical pulmonologist along with healthcare administration. Also mentored medical colleges and district hospital in Gujarat for COVID critical care through Government of Gujarat Department of Health. Sir, I would request you to please take over and give your presentation. Ritu, can you please add the presentation?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karthik, for your kind words of introduction. And having made my life a little difficult because of Dr. Agam Vora, when you have Virat Kohli batting in first, then it's always difficult to follow him on his footsteps, how we are going to go further. I sincerely thank IJCP and Apex for having chosen me to accompany Dr. Agam Vora in this interesting discussion of immunomodulation, and of course, some of the topic which is very important and like to my nearer to my heart, that is living beyond 100 years. I would take this up further so that we can be on time with our very important presentation and discussion, whichever is required to be taken further. So I'm thankful to Dr. Agam Vora for having set in the ball correctly, having taken us through the journey wherein we used to live for 100,000 years and we are going to be living only for 12 years. In next 3,000, 4,000 years. It is 6883. I remember it very classically. Then we are in 2020. So still we have about 4,000, 5,000 years more to come to that level. But is it not that we understand that the human body, which was supposed to be living for 100,000 years, from there it has come to 10,000 years. And now we are coming down gradually in spite of having had a lot of advantages and having understood the immunomodulation and immunomodulators and disease controllers. But do we think that in case if we take away all the infections from the planet Earth, still we would be able to live 15 years more or 20 years more than we are expected to live right now? Let us run through this journey. These beautiful flowers look quite good, but in COVID era, what has happened is that these flowers have gone scanty. It does not remain so rosy. It does not remain so pink. This is the floral fauna in our nearby our residence. And it has really been giving us some pleasant feelings when we go out in these gloomy days of COVID. Now, what exactly is it there in our Indian old understanding about living a human being? How does it live? So individual life is thought to be lived for 100 years. And I'm for sure this was not written in a few thousand years back, but this was in past few decades or past few centuries. And we had 4 ashrams, 4 stages of life. The brahmacharya, the studentship, grihasthashram, the householder, the vanaprasthashram, the forest dweller, and sannyasam, the ascetic. This talks about 25 years each. It means that probably we are going to live for 100 years. But this is what is our culture. But our culture is also connected with science. I am going to add on something related to science here. Dr. Agam Vora has taken us through the journey of our mythological books and mythological livings like Ram or Bhagwan Ram and Bhagwan Krishna and all those. But what exactly is the science? I'm quoting Hanuman Chalisa here. And Hanuman Chalisa has mentioned the distance between the sun and earth, which has been taken up by the modern astronomy science, and which talks about somewhere around 152.171.522 kilometers, right? So that is what is the distance we know now scientifically. But what is it exactly? How has it been depicted? It has been depicted in Indian culture in Hanuman Chalisa, which was mentioned by Tulsidas, that Jug Sahastra Yojana Parabhanu Lilyo Tahi Madhura Fala Jano. One Jug is 12,000, Sahasra is 1,000, Yojan is 8 miles, and when you make it together, and when you convert that mile into kilometers, it turns out to be the same as it has been defined by many scientific bodies, and which we know about 153,000 kilometers. So science and culture was there in our own Indian ancient days, and that is what is probably helping us to understand. Now, what does WHO say? What does the health meaning by WHO? It talks of the physical, mental, social, economical, social, sexual, many things has to go into a very good synchronized way in case if we want to live longer and healthier. The health is a continuum of microcosm and macrocosm. And Rigveda also talks about Shatam Jivam Sharada. I'm not going to take you more into this because we have very short time to discuss other matters. But it is, we know that if the person can live 100 autumns, it means we would be able to take up all the challenges during the whole year and can live a longer and healthy life. Now we know that the immune modulation is very important to understand. And the science talks about various species and its living expansion or the lifespan, and it talks about 120 years for human being. The longest is tortoise, then comes horse, African elephant, golden eagle, chimpanzee, and even fruit fly, which remains for 25 days. But are we living for 120 years? No. Taking through one scientific data, which talks about our life expectancy, it started from 1850s till 2000 or maybe 2010, we were somewhere nearby 40 to 50 years in various countries, because India didn't contribute to this. We don't have that data for India. And then we have reached about 80 years. Last 150 years have been the biggest development year for healthcare, for antibiotics, for medical newer advents, everything, but we have not been able to add more than 40 or 50 years. We still are not reaching to 120 years as it mentions here. So what is it that is missing us to take us further? And that talks about something which is a science of telomeres. The telomeres are the one which are controlling the aging process, and telomerase is the enzyme which is responsible for extraordinary resistance to aging. And the way to prolong healthy life would be dealing something with the DNAs, with the peptides and the proteins. I'm not going to take you through the journey of this particular cycle, but what does it take is that the control of aging can be very well done with telomeres and certain kind of activities and food also, which can help us. And the biggest example for that is Okinawa diet. Japan, Okinawa is a place, and wherein people are having food which is very rich into that, and which has given the average life expectancy more than 100 years, and the people have been living beyond 100 years. And this gentleman was 116 years, one of the oldest one living, nearing to 120 years, which is expected to be the life for a Homo sapiens, the species which we belong to. The New England Journal of Medicine had a great study of New England centenarian study, and a massive genetic study of the people who live more than 100 years had found dozens of new clues. What are these clues? The Boston University gerontologist said, if we start looking at the genes and what they do, we better would understand the biology of extreme longevity. And what they said is that roughly 15% of the general population have some of the longevity associated genes. But now the statistics is only 1 in 6,000 currently live to be centenarian. Many fewer people than what is expected to live. And what are the statistics for India? I am for sure we would have 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000 or so. So let us understand how to achieve this. So the process of aging, there are two processes. One is the biological aging process, which is the result of multiple traits in the organisms or in our human body. And one body itself cannot be or may not be programmed to acquire gray hair, wrinkles, and diminished metabolic functions. So we have taken up this as a sign of process of aging. But process of aging is a very complex, interaction of various entities like lifestyle, like occupation, environment, genetics, and diseases. It is the interrelation of all this which is putting in its own impact on aging. And that is why when all these interact together, the aging becomes an issue, and aging becomes very fast. And it is just like we can put in an analogy of human body as a car which burns oxygen as a fuel. And we know we have the more you put in the pedal, more we use fuel, the more we use fuel, more we produce what we see. So in today's era, we need to understand how best to have control of process of aging. And for that, we need to keep in this mind, what are the theories of aging? Wear and tear theory, as I talked about, autoimmune theory, immunomodulation, aging clock theory, cross-linkage theory, theory of free radicals, and theory of cellular dysfunction also. People have been working on it over the years, over the decades, to see to it that in case if we can achieve something which is beyond aging, and can we do this inevitable to stop? Can we control that so that we can have a longer, healthier life? So in human car, it is not a manufactured object. So we have a capacity for repair and self-regeneration. Whatever we are giving as medicine, it is just the raw material for regenerative capacity of our body to control the devastation, destruction, and remanufacture the cells which are lost, the cell which have become dysfunctional, to make it functional again. But the problem is the capacity of self-repair is not able to keep up with the damage rate. The reason being that one worth free. You and I have a car which we always get, serviced, regularly checked up. We get all the parameters being checked up because there are dials. We don't have a dial of blood sugar here. We don't have a dial of blood pressure here. We have a dial of human body weight, but we also don't consider that, as Dr. Agam said, malnutrition, underweight and overweight, both are issues, and which also enhances or increases the speed of aging. So in that case, the aging and death looks like an inevitable thing, and it appears that we are losing life of 80. A study which was done in rats, which are supposed to be living for 20 years, 21 days, and when they were injected with stem cells, they could live for 71 years. So according to that, the lifespan was increased for threefolds. So does it happen that even in case we use stem cell injected to human body, the lifespan would be 200 years? But it is far-fetched dream. Still, it is not there on the horizon. There are many interventions for anti-aging medicines, like reducing oxidative stress, increasing resistance to stress, hormone therapy, cell replacement, immune enhancement therapies, but they are in slow progression. So what is it that you and I can do it to prolong the way of healthy living, or prolong the life which is nearly healthy and longer also? These are the common ways which have been put in, which is there in the literature, which you'll find on the net, you'll find in many of the journals also. We need to keep the organs healthy, mind healthy, bones and joints healthy, healthy aesthetics, and of course, healthy immune function. So for keeping organ healthy, all these things are there: eating well, reducing medication, preventive checkup, but main important is preventive maintenance, and preventive maintenance of our metabolic control. Metabolic control, of course, metabolic diseases and lifestyle disease itself is a bigger issue in country everywhere, even in country like India, but that is not the point of discussion today here. Second comes the stress. Is there something which we can do? We can do lifestyle modification, we can do medication also. But in our day-to-day life, something which can help us to reduce the stress and impact of stress, there is, again, I'm going to talk today about more of those which are from the naturally derived substances, and something which can help us in taking it for longer way without having lost our vitality. So like lactium, it's a cow milk produce. And lactium has been found to be effective in reduces the effect of stress on body. Even it reduces the impact of cortisol, a marker of stress. And that has been found to be on longevity, which is adding on. This is a French research which has come into practice. Bones and joints, something like 5-LOX lipoxygenase inhibition, which would reduce the inflammation, which would reduce the osteoarthritis also. Once again, it is derived from plant. And there's a company doing a great research on this in India, and which they are bringing it up. The spleen tyrosine kinase inhibition, which is also going to reduce the osteoarthritis, once again, which is from a natural source. Collagen is something which is very important to understand on the prolonging healthy life. From 21 years of age, we would be losing 1% collagen every time, every year. And in case if we can reduce the collagen depletion, we can prolong our aesthetics, we can have beautiful skin, hair and nails, and bones and joints will remain healthy. That can be simply be done with choline stabilized orthosalicylic acid, once again, which is not a pharmacological substance, but which is a natural substance. It is activating the biological pathways which generates collagen, which promotes bone and skin health. These are the part and parcel of our day-to-day activity, day-to-day eatables, which will help us. But our main concern today is about the immune function and its maintenance. Dr. Agam Vora has taken us through the journey of immunity and the defenses. So I'm not going to take much onto this, but I'm going to put in only one stress here, is the third line of defense, and that is the lymphocytes and the antibodies. The rest two are also going to be there. And we have now understood that it is the T cell dysfunction, which is creating an issue, which is creating an impact on the mortality and morbidity of all the diseases, inclusive of COVID. So, which have we found is probably the neglected one. We have been dealing with many things, but we have not been dealing with this. And that has added on to increase in disease and increase in infectious disease and communicable and non-communicable disease is growing. And that is why probably we had COVID-19 as the latest entrance, and that has created a problem in terms of mortality, which is a huge impact, and day-to-day life, inclusive of lockdowns. So diseases have increased, and when we talk of COVID, obviously, Dr. Agam Vora has already told us that it is impacting our lungs. Why so? Lung is one of the largest organ of the body, and lung is exposed to environment 24/7. When we breathe in the air enters from the nostril, it goes through the airways, it goes inside the lungs, and it comes to the functioning unit of lung, which is an alveolus, which is surrounded by blood vessels, which is very thin airways. All this particular functioning unit gets an impact of an invader, and especially with COVID. So when this lung is exposed to an environment which has a surface area of nearly 160 square meters, 300 million such units, when flattened and put on a surface, it is a huge surface area. And when that is exposed to environment, the air which we breathe, which has pollutants, which has infections, which have infective organisms, which has chemicals, whatnot, obviously the impact is going to be huge when it is being added on by COVID infection. And infections and altered immunity go hand in hand. It can be as common as a common cold, which itself is an impact of an altered immunity. Allergy, what we name, is also an impact of an altered immunity. Either it is hyperimmune stage or overimmune stage. In that case, it still would be there. And when COVID enters, we know that the COVID has entered into the lung, and from there it has impacted many other organs of our body. So now we have to understand how can we deal with immunity in COVID era. And when we know about the immunity, when we talk about the immunity, the biggest thing to understand here would be whenever the aging process starts, as with the younger to elder and elderly gets aged more and more, all these three gets reduced, the thymus, the bone marrow function, and the spleen and lymph node. But the increase in infiltration by the pro-inflammatory cells in the lung tissue is huge. And that is what is the reason for developing cytokine storm. And that is what is the reason about immune getting dysfunctional. Either it is suppressed in case of comorbidities, or it gets a hyperimmune status, which is a cytokine storm, and which has led to a bigger devastation in country like it. So the need is to modulate the immunity. Immunomodulators, pharmacological and medicinal, we are aware of it. But what can we do to modulate the immunity from our other sources? And India being the country of medicine beyond 1,000 years, beyond 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, the country of Ayurveda, country of herbal medications, it has been found to be there that the modulation of immunity is going to be the requirement for the world. Low, weak, or damaged immune system becomes an open invitation for infections. Hyperimmune reactions lead to devastating outcomes like cytokine storms, and that creates an issue. And right now, we still are in the blind where to go to get an immune modulation. So that is where we are going to work over it. So we have certain ways to boost immunity, which we are aware of it, and which has been made available to everyone through media, through government, through activities Dr. Agam Vora has been doing, through activities IJCP has been doing. And there are many other ways which have been found today, and day to day, people have been exercising or working on it. There are certain diets also which are helping to boost the immunity. Herbs, which is becoming an important aspect in today's era. When we talk about it, there's always been a tug of war between the allopathy and Ayurveda and other homeopathy and Ayush about the mixopathy. We are not going to take that up here, but what we are going to put in is something which is followed with certain evidences. So when we talk of our Indian eatings, we talk of our Indian practice of medicine, ancient medicine, there are medicinal plants, herbs, and spices which have been identified to improve immunity, to boost immunity, and which also has been accepted by our own government to be used in COVID era. Some of the plants, like papaya, has an effect which we know about. When the platelets go down, people have been using papaya pills for improving platelets. Certain other plants, as it has been mentioned here, which has been having various effects on health as an antiviral, as an anti-inflammatory agent, and which has been found to be effective in various clinical studies and trials which has been done. So all these plants, when been brought together and been associated with other supportives, it has been found that it is been found to be boosting immunity. WHO itself has accepted that around 80% of the world population is using herbal medicines for primary health care across Europe and South Asia, and India, China, and other Oriental countries have been found to be using that. It has its anti-inflammatory and natural immunity boosting effect also. Our own Ministry of Ayush has provided a lot of guidelines and a lot of understanding on how best to use immune boosting measures. These are the measures which have been given by Ayush in era of COVID. The general measures, Ayush immunity promoting measures by like using certain herbal tea, turmeric, which has been in day-to-day life for everyone. Some simple remedies like nasal application, pulling oils, and stimulation. And all this would be helping not only to improve immune function, to improve our capacity to withstand, and also get some relief out of the symptoms related to any viral infection, inclusive of COVID in respiratory tract. So now coming back to our own topic, to live beyond 100 years, and that too in COVID era. What do we need? First of all, we need is to management of the patient's life should be done beyond diagnosis and treatment of disease. Diagnosis and treatment has now become, unfortunately, on the tip of the thumb for everyone in Google educated era. If I have a legal case, I would go to an advocate. If I have something I need to repair, I would go to a repairer like a car repairer or a plumber. But if I have a health problem, first I will go on Google, identify something, I'll do it on my own. We will not understand that there is a need of not only the diagnosis and treatment, but beyond that, when we talk of living for 100 years or beyond. We should consider promotion of function and prevention of decline, which unfortunately has not been the era of wellness, at least in India right now. We have Western countries which have been doing that, but probably right now it is not the intent in Indian subcontinent because we are struggling with many more things. But the time is there that we should understand for that. We should be focusing on improving the understanding of the science of aging, and that is now becoming an interest. And I'm very thankful to Apex and IJCP for having brought this to us. Interdisciplinary caregiving, a holistic approach, not necessarily a mixopathy, but holistic approach, which also includes beyond medicine, also includes about emotions, also includes about so many other trainings, which would help us to sustain, withstand, and come out of it. So interacting approaches with restoration, management, and optimization of human health should be very importantly understood. The approaches which have an ecological base, environmentally, economically, and socially viably would make it as a sustainable health. And the approaches which work harmoniously with both the human body and non-human environment, which would be very important to understand whether we can sustain health and longevity together or not. I'm putting in all these pictures here. Imagine Dr. Casey Monty, if he had lived 100 years or more, he would have changed the concept of many, many disease management in respiratory to us. And we have a great student of Dr. Casey Monty, Dr. Agam Vora here with us. Dr. K.K. Agarwal, unfortunately, we lost him in COVID era. Imagine if he had lived for 100 years. He would have brought many new things to the grassroots level, clinician, physician, a general practitioner to India. Kishore Kumar, we know it. Of course, R.D. Burman, the music maestro. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, Dr. Ramanujan, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and the one I read and I adore a lot is Vivekananda. Imagine if they had a time to think over aging beyond 100 years and probably time to work over it. And if they had lived for 100 years or more, India would have been on a different scale in every aspect, every field which we have put in here. But probably we have missed the bus for them. But in case if we do not want to miss the bus, we need to understand that yes, we can live healthy and we can live more than 100 years happily, provided we begin working on it. So what Vivekananda has said, that is arise, awake, stop, not till the goal is reached. And probably I would be sharing something. I have already started doing that. This is a herbarium which is there at my own house, thanks to my mother, who belongs to a family of great doctors. Her father was one of the first few medical graduates from Kolkata Medical College in early 1900, before even our independence. And they have cultivated this habit of creating. So whatever pictures you have put in previous slides, it is grown here on my garden as a herbarium, and we have been using that and happily using it. Thank you so much again for having given a precious hearing and having given me this opportunity to communicate to you about the topic, which I find is very exciting and workable for everybody of us in the country of India, where we have everything available to our every next corner, even grocery shop also. Thank you so much.
Hello.
That was fantastic, Parthiv. Lovely presentation.
Thank you so much, Adam.
The last slides were really interesting. Very well.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Very well conveyed.
Wonderful presentation, sir. I could see that you are in a hurry also to complete the presentation, but you took up very nicely to the audience, sir. You spoke about aging,
Parthiv,
which is inevitable.
you have a TV program. If you want to leave,
8:15, I am to take up on TV live. The TV team has already come to my place, so I'll be joining there. Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Right, sir.
If there are any questions, Karthik, we can continue.
Karthik, I'm here.
Oh, that's nice. Dr. Himanshu is there. So yeah, please take up the question answer session, sir.
Yeah. So Dr. Mehta has left or what?
Yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Mehta has left now because he has
Okay.
a TV
No
speech
problem.
now.
No problem. So his question was there that how is immunity linked with longevity? So if Dr. Vora can address that question.
That's a lovely question. I'm sure Parthi would have done a better justice to this question. But what I understand out of his presentation and what I learned from his slides, uh, there are various things which, due to poor immunity, are called as cellular senescence or cellular dehiscence or cellular killing, which happened at a telomerase level. And shorter the telomere, lesser is the life, is what is the growing concept. When you have better immunity, where your resistance power is better, when your fight against disease is better, obviously you survive longer. Your damage to the organs is going to be less. We have seen in this COVID era that when you have patients who go into that hyperimmune phase or who have this cytokine storms, have a greater mortality. We have seen youngsters and very young patients who are lost in this unprecedented time. So I'm sure immunity and longevity are interlinked. Better the immunity, longer the life expectancy. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Vora. I'll take up the next question. It is straight away in relation to your topic, Dr. Vora. Can immunosuppressants alter our immunity for life?
That's a good question. Generally, most of these immunosuppressor, immunoenhancers that we are using have a temporary effect or a time bound effect. For example, certain immunomodulators, say you take a vaccine. Certain vaccine gives you memory print, and those memory could remain for a longer time. Say for example, you are taking a pneumococcal vaccine, you are taking a polysaccharide vaccine. Polysaccharide vaccine will give you immunity for next 5 years minimum. If you are using a conjugate vaccine could give you a longer immunity, and you may need a booster dose only when your immunity suppresses once you cross 65 years and above. Vis-a-vis, you are taking a immunosuppressant drug. Say, imagine you are taking steroid for say COVID. So you are taking steroid for COVID. You are giving it for 7 to 10 days. The effects are not long lasting. The effects are short term. So it depends on what kind of molecule you use. The immune effects are accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next question is, will immunomodulators increase someone's risk of infection?
Yes, of course. Immunomodulators do improve the risk of other infections, and we are yet to understand much about immunomodulators. So let's look about what example I give you. So you're using rituximab for rheumatoid arthritis. It's an immunomodulator. Rituximab is a biologic. When you use this biologic, there are chances of tuberculosis higher. You're using certain biologics for disease like currently we are using a lot of biologics in COVID, and I fear in next couple of years we may see a lot of fungal infections coming in. We may see a lot of tuberculosis coming in because we are suppressing immunity. There are issues with immunosuppression. So you need a balanced immunity. If you enhance your immunity too much, it has its own problem. If you suppress your immunity too much, it has its own problem. So you have to learn somehow to balance the immunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Vora, what is the average duration of immunomodulator therapy?
That's a great question. How long would you continue immunomodulators depends on what condition you are using it. Say you are using it for a short disease. Say you have a allergic disease coming up. You would use your immunomodulators for a shorter duration. You will use this immunosuppressants, steroid therapy for what? 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, depending on the allergic disease. Suppose if you're using it for vasculitis, say using it for rheumatoid arthritis, you would use these immunomodulators for a long time, maybe lifelong. It depends on what indications you're using. By and large, when we are talking about short term diseases, like say infections, acute infections, or maybe say diarrheas, or maybe say GI disturbances, etc., you may use it for a shorter duration. But if you're using it for a chronic conditions, you may have to use it for a long time.
Okay, got it, sir. The next question, it is in relation to natural immunomodulators, for example, vitamins and minerals. So what is your view in relation to using these vitamins and minerals?
This is very again an interesting concept. It depends on what is the level of immunity you have. Suppose if you're talking about to simplify that, see, I'll tell you, you're talking about, say, iron therapy. Now, it depends on what would be your regular intake of iron. It depends on what is your hemoglobin level, right? Somebody whose hemoglobin level is 8, somebody whose hemoglobin level is 10, somebody whose hemoglobin level is 12 have a different iron requirement if it is iron deficiency anemia. So, if you're talking about nutritional supplementation, it depends on what is your requirement. So, if you are a deficient person, if you are a malnutrition there, you may require higher dosages for a shorter duration. Once your levels normalize, you may need a supplementation for a longer time. Now, with changes in lifestyle, with changes in quality of food, with changes in, you may buy best quality apples which are available in your area, but trust me, those apples are grown by a lot of fertilizers and a lot of antibiotics, and the content of apple which was there a decade and a half earlier is not same as you get it now. In fact, I missed that slide. I was seeing a very beautiful slide which says that the content, the nutritional content of an apple in over last 15 years has gone down by 70%. In the sense, whatever nutritional value you had with the same apple, if you had consumed 15 years ago, what you're getting is only 30% of what is it is meant for. It is true for all food items that we are eating. And look at the change in food habits. Today is Sunday evening, and my children has announced since morning. Today is good food, and by good food they mean it's going to be a Domino's, or it's going to be God knows what Swiggy and Zomato delivers. Right? Everybody has a habit of eating so-called junk food, so-called outside food. And I am of the growing opinion, okay, now it is the time when we have to regularly supplement ourselves with those nutritional pills. I'm sure that everybody who's here is immune deficient in some or the other way, and it is a time to supplement yourself with all these zincs and vitamins preparation that are available. I would, I am I am probably making it a habit in my house that everybody should take one multivitamin supplements daily. I don't know how justified I am in talking like this, but I am of this growing opinion that time has come where we may have to supplement ourselves with minimum requirement. Trust me. See, for example, vitamin C. Vitamin C is not produced in your body. There is no ways vitamin C will be produced unless you take a vitamin C supplement. Like you need sunlight for vitamin D. I mean, so many times with this lockdown, you're spending hours together in your room for last 2.5 hours. Everybody's stuck on their bed. I'm stuck on my table sitting in front of you, and that is happening for number of hours during day. So our sunlight exposures are less. I think it is a time to think about regular supplementation with a lot of micronutrients and multivitamins. Thank you.
Yeah, I got that completely, Dr. Bora. And there are some other questions also that are coming up, especially in relation to zinc. Uh, is there any correlation of zinc with mucormycosis in COVID-19?
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about it, which I fail to understand. But yes, there is a growing concern. We are trying to explore why we are seeing more and more of mucormycosis, which we did not see earlier. I did not see this kind of mucormycosis ever in my last 25 years of medical career, right? So there is something which this virus is very peculiar. I have not seen, to tell you truth, this kind of cytokine storms also ever with any infection, viral infection of this magnitude. So this virus is behaving in a funny way. I think there is a relation with more of moisture. There is relation with uncontrolled diabetes. There is relation with overuse of immunomodulators like steroids. And moreover, there are issues with those nasal cannula, those BiPAPs, those oxygens, etc. The contamination at various levels, which is more responsible for mucor than zinc. But yes, there may be some growing concern about it. Though I have not changed my practice of prescribing zinc. Thank you.
Yeah, and there is on the similar line, one question is there that zinc deficiency has been found in some of the studies, especially in COVID-19 patients. So, what are your views in relation to zinc deficiency, especially in COVID-19?
I also have read these papers, and to my mind, zinc is a very important component of your immune system. During COVID time, we learned a lot of about zinc. We always knew about zinc's role, but COVID taught us many things, including role of zinc. Uh, Zinc is required for cell integrity. Zinc is required for reducing viral replication, and moreover, zinc has a synergistic effect with whichever other drug that you are using. Say you are using ivermectin, say you are using doxycycline, say using azithromycin, say using hydroxychloroquine. When you combine zinc with it, zinc leads to it is an ionophoric effect, in the sense it allows influx of these medicines in the cellular level, and hence the intracytoplasmic concentration of these drugs, that is your ivermectin or your hydroxychloroquine or any other molecule that you're using, increases significantly. That leads to better killing of viruses. So I think zinc is an important component of drug therapy, more so during COVID times.
I got that, Dr. Vora. And there are a few more questions, especially in relation to polyherbal formulation that Karthik ji has highlighted. So, uh, especially one question is there any role of that polyherbal formulation in non-COVID thrombocytopenia and Covishield induced thrombocytopenia?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Uh, I am excited with what Karthik showed earlier. The data looks interesting. We need to, of course, do more work and understand it better. But what Parthiv showed in his ending slides, and
Yeah,
we all have experienced it. I mean,
yeah,
be it any specialty doctor, we have all realized there are times when you get paralyzed, where you get handicapped with your allopathic approach, and you need something more. And what
right.
I understood out of these molecules, these repurposed drugs, if studied well, I think it can add to your armatorium. Uh, Unluckily, with most of these drugs which were used in by the alternative sciences, did not have enough studies. So what Karthik presented earlier is very validated study. So I think with this kind of validation coming, with this kind of support studies coming, I would be excited. It would be exciting to use these molecules in various diseases. What I understand from this herbal medicines, I'm giving a very general statement. That it does not have major side effects, and it can be a very good co-prescription with your therapist. So see, had you spoken to me about it a year earlier, I would have blindly said yes, go ahead and use it, because I didn't have anything else to use. We did not have anything a year earlier, right? We did not have.
Yeah,
We were having only oseltamivir, favipiravir was in studies. Remdesivir, people were talking about it, and even if people were talking about where was it available last time, I think people spent a fortune in just procuring remdesivir. And those times, had you asked me, I would have probably given clear cut yes answer. But now we have a lot of specific drugs, and we have better understanding of disease. There, I would definitely use such molecules as add-on therapy. Thank you.
I got that. And to stress on this particular question that we have received from Dr. Hemant Kumar Singh. So I would like to stress over here that Apex Laboratories, they have conducted a research or even on non-COVID thrombocytopenia cases, especially in dengue cases, and it has been found that thrombocyte levels have gone up because it contains that papaya extract in it, and that is definitely useful for improving the platelet count or improving the thrombocytopenia. And I think it's more questions are there in relation to this horrible formulation only. One is one from Dr. Tirupati asking that is it safe in pregnancy and lactation? As far as my understanding is concerned, for this polyherbal formulation, it is not recommended in pregnancy and lactation. And one more question: how long can I continue having this polyherbal formulation as a prophylaxis? This question is there from Dr. Saibal Datta, and that this can be continued for 14 days. So, Apex Laboratory, they generally recommend it to be given 14 days, and as a prophylaxis, one tablet in a day. But if patients are there of mild to moderate cases, then two tablets in a day it can be taken. So those are the things in relation to that polyherbal formulation. And Dr. Surojit has asked that uh, explain the role of vitamin D3.
Role of vitamin
D3.
C. Yeah, vitamin C is loved by a
Vitamin
lot
D3,
of
sir.
vitamin D3.
Yeah.
Yes, vitamin D3 is also important ingredient of your immune system. And vitamin D, interestingly, is found role in variety of disorders. Variety of disorders, mind you. Even in tuberculosis. And I was very much excited with the study which I came across, which says that if you have a TB patient and if the family members receive vitamin D3 supplements, the chances of them developing tuberculosis are also less. So these are very interesting papers which talk about role of vitamin D as not only its role in calcium and mineral metabolism, but its role as immunomodulator. It would be, and a lot of us have observed that a lot of our patients, including a lot of our colleagues, are vitamin D deficient. And whenever you have a deficient immunity, for sure, correcting that immunity and normalizing that immunity would add value to your clinical outcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Himanshu, I think you can ask the last question, and we will close it because it's already 8:25.
Yeah. So this last question is there from Dr. Samaresh. He has mentioned that we have seen people who lives in hygienic environment and they maximally suffered from COVID. So compared to people who lives in unhygienic atmosphere. So why is it so?
I did not get the question right. People who live in unhygienic environment are getting more COVID. Is that the question?
No, people who are living in hygienic environment, they are suffering maximally with COVID-19. That is what he has asked.
That's a good observation, but unluckily could not make such observation. And unluckily, in my practice in Mumbai, I have seen all category of patients suffering equally. So we've got some top class people, we've got some film stars and best of the politicians, and we've got I go to Bhagwati Hospital, which is a municipal hospital, and currently also there are 35 patients who are admitted have are for an absolutely poor strata. So as I was showing in my last slide, as my teacher Professor Mohanty said, nobody is immune to airborne diseases, nobody is immune to droplet diseases, nobody is immune to diseases which are spread by poor quality air. And if there is something that you could do for your future generation, is to wake up today, is to probably have some awareness and stimulate at least one person near you to be aware of environmental issue. And only this awareness is going to change the environment in time to come. So I think it is a time where we take our environment seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, I got that completely, Dr. Vora. And I suggest, Karthik ji, there are a lot of questions that we have come across. Probably we can address those questions one to one to our audience later on, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Himanshu, what you
So,
should do is take up those doctors' email IDs you will have in the list, and we
yes,
could send them personalized email, sorting. I mean, addressing their queries. The people
right.
have spent their time; they've given us their evenings. I think itna to banta hai. We should, probably respond to them. Unluckily, because of time constraint, we'll not be able to do so on this web. But we would for sure get back to each one of you. You posted your query, and we would try to solve that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I got that completely. And now the time to conclude the event. I thank Dr. Vora and Dr. Mehta for enlightening presentations on immunomodulators and living beyond 100 years. We appreciate your contribution, sir, this evening in boosting our knowledge on boosting immunity for a healthy and long life. The information that both of you projected will be useful to take our patients' health to the next level. Yes, immunomodulators, including natural immunomodulators, will continue to have a critical role during this pandemic and throughout the life. And yes, we can live beyond 100 years with all the necessary efforts and actions. And on the behalf of audience and everyone here, we owe to both of you, Dr. Vora and Dr. Mehta, a special word of thanks for taking all the efforts and being here and enlightening us. We really appreciate that. And now to the audience, I know your time is yours and you gave that very generously this evening. And I, on the behalf of Apex Laboratories, want to thank each one of you. I thank IJCP, MedTalks for their technical support to conduct this event smoothly. I apologize that I have not been on the camera. Sorry for that. Finally, thanks to Apex Laboratories for organizing this event and bringing all of us together. That's the end of today's session. See you all during the next event. Apologize if any mistake at our end. Bye for now and good night.
Thank you. Had fun. Himanshu did it very well. And it was very
Thank you,
nice to
sir.
connect to you, Karthik, after a long time.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Team
much, sir. It
IJCP.
was pleasure having
Thanks
you in our
everybody for
session.
being here.